Hello, gamers. Power Heal here, and we're just doing a little bit of a channel direction video here. This is going to be a really short one, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about the type of content we've been hosting on the channel recently. So, somebody had mentioned in the comments, they're like, "Oh, you've kind of like changed up. You're not really doing the type of stuff you used to do." That's really just because there's not really anything to make guide content on, right? So this is purely going to be, well, I mean, it's always meant to be an informational channel. And I do think the videos I'm making are still informational, but they're informational in a different way. And obviously, they're highly controversial, right? But yeah, right now there's just not any guide content. So, as with anything, right, I would encourage people who, if you don't enjoy this type of content or something, please obviously feel no obligation to like watch a video, out of like subscriber loyalty or anything like that. Like that is not the point of any of this. Like that's not why I do this, right? It's like I'm not worried about getting a view count on a video or something like that. I don't make my videos thinking like, oh, this is going to do a lot of views or something. Usually it's just, is it going to be, sometimes we've done kind of fun stuff on the channel, like react to crazy things. We've done informational stuff like the guides, which are kind of useful. We've done game opinion things, like a lot of stuff we've been doing recently. We've been doing, other games. Like we've touched on other games sometimes and stuff like that. Obviously, Path of Exile content. So it's really whatever is like kind of topical, whatever I've been thinking about. We do stuff like the Classic Plus Corner. I'm going to get back to doing that probably pretty soon. So yeah, I mean, if a particular video or like, a style of video isn't really something like you signed up for, feel free to just check back at a later date because for Classic Plus, obviously, we're going to be making a lot of guide content and all that stuff's coming back, but that's because there's going to be new content to make guides for, right? Currently, not so much. There may be some core punk content coming. I think it's unlikely, though, that this game really sees a resurgence, unfortunately, next month. But, we'll see how it goes. And if it's good, we may consider doing some guide content for this game. But I feel like it's probably going to be unlikely, just to be honest. PoE 2 is coming out this weekend, like the League. They did make an interesting change to PoE 2 in that it's a lot easier to play totems now. So I may check out PoE 2 and potentially do content on that, but that's not going to be a guarantee. So yeah, I mean, it's probably going to be videos like the ones you've been seeing. I mean, probably going to be different topics. I also have more stuff in the pipeline in terms of like thoughts about Classic Plus, thoughts about like kind of dungeon changes and things like that, and kind of like a GDKP but not GDKP loot style system that's actually built into the game. So I have a video on that, but that one's a bit more comprehensive, so it's going to take a little bit, right? It's not something that I kind of already know what I want to say about it. It takes a little bit more planning. Same thing with the other video about the dungeon changes and stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty much going to be this type of content for a little bit. I was also thinking of potentially playing hardcore, um, but I wanted to like find a partner to play with. But a lot of the people that I was gonna play with, I don't think they want to play hardcore. So I don't know. Maybe I'll just end up playing myself, or maybe we won't end up playing. Who knows? But if I do hardcore, that's uh, another thing I'll probably be posting about because I'll obviously be playing it at the time, right? And something else that I also considered was, I guess they're still making those hardcore rip videos occasionally. So I don't know how you guys would feel about me reacting to those, but leave a comment down below if you like the hardcore rip video react content. I think it's like compilations, and I don't really feel like super bad reacting to those because I'd be obviously giving my, unique, my own perspective on things, right? And the channels that make them are basically just clipping people anyway, right? So it's like we're clipping the clipper. I don't really think it's that bad, and for some people it could enhance the experience watching it with commentary of an experienced player. So that's something I was thinking of doing because I've seen a couple of those pop up in my feed, and those are actually always annoying. But yeah, there's just not that much to really go over in the classic WoW content. Like there's some people like the Meko guy. I've talked about him on the channel before. Like he covers like a lot of the era kind of like rating scene and like the drama content, and I'm not really involved in that. Like so I don't really know much about the people involved or anything like that. Like I probably do know some of the people, right? Just because I've probably played with them on Anniversary and stuff like that, but I don't really know a lot of like the in-depth beef and rivalries and stuff. So that's not really a thing. I think it's best to just let him do his thing over in his area there. But yeah, so that's probably what to expect for content in the near future. Um, but yeah, don't, like I said, don't worry about watching anything that you don't want to watch. Like I mentioned in one of the comments, I was replying to one of the people about this, that like, this is kind of the advantage of not being like full-time content creator, right? Is that like, you don't have to pump out like fluff content that, is just going to be there to basically like pacify an audience or anything like that, right? I just make whatever content I want basically on stuff that I think I want. And it doesn't matter if it's like a guide or if it's something I think is going to be controversial or anything like that. I'll just make it anyway, even if I think people are going to disagree with it, because it's my opinion and I'm just putting it out there. The last thing is like I don't really make content with the explicit purpose of arguing with people or anything like that. I think somebody had mentioned that in the comment section. I'm not afraid to like argue with people. Typically, I feel like if you guys have tracked my comment history activity, I feel like for the most part I'm actually pretty civil. But there'll be some times where I probably seem a bit mean. But I just I don't know. I just have no patience for people that, in my opinion, are clearly kind of bad faith actors in a given space. And I don't know if it's because like I have a lot of experience, I think, with people who are bad faith actors. When I was in college, I did. Yeah, I wasn't really like a debater or anything, but I was around a lot of people, kind of in that sphere of things, like the philosophy type people who, which this is not to say that you know there's anything wrong with these types of people in particular. Like a lot of them are really cool, right? But there's some that they have a particularly strong feeling about some given issue, and they are willing to stand it to death with any type of bad faith argument, whether it be like religion or something about abortion. And I've been through the gamut, like discussing and sort of like not formally debating, but informally debating with these people. And I have a pretty good idea, I think, of when somebody is not being kind of honest, and even when they don't believe what they're saying about a given thing. Like there's some things that are just incredibly obvious. Like I had like one of the guys I was just getting into in the comments with recently, like literally yesterday or something, was trying to say that and I might make a video about this specifically, but probably like the last video on dungeon farming for a bit, even though I always say that. But this guy was basically trying to say that the post that Blizzard made about dungeon farming, like when they made the initial post about the hotfix, and they're like, oh, I'm trying to remember exactly how they worded it. I don't have it pulled up right now, but they basically said like, oh yeah. So we are, we don't like the idea of like one person clearing everything, and basically carrying people to the dungeon. So what we're doing is, if you don't participate in the dungeon, we're dropping the loot of the mobs down to based on the number of people who did meaningful damage to the monsters or something like that. So if you're the only one carrying the dungeon, quote unquote, the loot is only going to drop for one player. And he's like standing this particular part of the post super hard, because what he's trying to say is that it's not that Blizzard has a problem with solo dungeon farmers. It's that, the solo dungeon farmers got caught in the crossfire. And look, this is proof, this is evidence that what you're saying isn't true, because, hey, they explicitly said in the post that, they're doing this because they don't want somebody like solo carrying the dungeon, right? But like, so like a boosting type situation. But the thing is, guys, you can't be this stupid, right? And this is why I get angry with the guy. Like, if I actually thought he was this stupid, I wouldn't call him stupid, right? Because then, or I wouldn't call him brain dead or like brain diseased or whatever. Because if I'm not going to call somebody I think is legitimately stupid, um, stupid, right? Because that's like just bullying at that point. It's like if you were to actually use, I don't know if you can say the R word on YouTube, but like if you were to say the R word to somebody who is actually has a mental disability, that this is like straight up bullying. People normally use the R word because they're saying like, you're being this way right now, even though you're not. That's kind of like the whole point of the insult to begin with, right? Um, so like clearly, what I'm trying to say here is that obviously Blizzard knows, right? If they make it so that if only a single person is attacking the mobs, that you get a single loot share of the loot, then obviously they know that's affecting solo dungeon farmers, right? Like they have to know. They know people are farming. They know people solo farm the dungeons. There's no way they obviously do. Okay, they know people solo farm the dungeons. They obviously know that if they make this change, it is going to affect those people too. Now, why did they word it like this specifically? And like I said, I'll probably make a video about this where you go into a little bit more depth, but I think it's pretty obvious to me. They know that this change they made is potentially going to upset people, right? And as you saw when they did it, people were upset. They weren't just upset about things like the quest items not showing up and stuff like that. The people who were solo dungeon farming were upset. So in order to kind of like head off some of this, and this is very common, right, in any type of business, and like I don't know if the person I was talking to in the comments, like if they're not bad faith and they're not stupid, they may be just genuinely very naive and inexperienced like in life, because there's so many times in life where you're not going to get the actual real answer from somebody about why something is being done, right? Because it doesn't really benefit them to give the real answer. Because it's just going to, because if you give the real answer, sometimes people feel targeted, right? So obviously what Blizzard's doing in this situation is they're being like, yeah, we're against boosting, huh? Because that's the thing that like everybody ubiquitously doesn't like. You know what I mean? So boosting becomes the straw man here, right? And then, but obviously they would not put that change through if they cared that it was going to impact solo dungeon farmers, because they knew it would impact solo dungeon farmers, right? So obviously they wanted the solo dungeon farmers to get hit as well. Otherwise, they would have done a different implementation, right? They wouldn't have even released it to begin with. It wouldn't have even gotten posted. Keep in mind, they intentionally went out of their way to post that they were going to do this and then actually did the hotfix, right? So clearly this was all intentional, and clearly it was meant to hit solo dungeon farmers. You cannot argue against that. To argue against that, you have to be either brain dead, incredibly naive, or bad faith. And, like the guy, like talking to this guy in the comment section, it's not like he doesn't communicate, like he communicates in a bad faith way, but he doesn't communicate like he's an actual idiot. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't sound like an actual moron in the comments. So clearly, like he's just being bad faith here. And like, so whenever I see a bad faith person in the comment section, I don't know, I just don't have any tolerance for it anymore. I'm not super old or anything, but my patience has just been like worn down with that type of thing. So I just let him have it. How I deal with it is like, if you're gonna kind of pretend to be stupid, right, and pretend like, like we're gonna pretend that, it's fine that people are getting 5-player loot in a single-player dungeon, and that's all good, and, they're completely uncontested, and there's nothing wrong with that at all, and that, hey, that's the same thing as a hunter using Eagle Eye to maybe having a slightly better chance to get a Black Lotus, or that's the exact same thing as a druid using aquatic form to, get to pools a little bit faster. We're going to pretend that's the same thing, right? If we're going to do that, if we're going to say all these stupid things, then I'm going to treat you like you're an idiot, and I'm going to flame you and humiliate you in the comment section. That's how it's going to go. And if people don't like that, then, it's their prerogative, I guess, to leave or to not watch that. But, they don't have to go and look at it in the comment section, I guess, right? But, yeah, that's the bottom line, right? It's, I don't interact with this. I don't interact like this with everyone. And you'll notice that, because there's definitely been people, like many people on this channel, who've had kind of like a genuine point of disagreement where I can tell they're being earnest and they just have a different philosophical view on the game. This is not something where, like it's very clear what the intent is. It's very clear the harm and the types of comparisons that are being made that are completely disingenuous. And, like this guy basically saying that, oh, this wasn't intended to affect solo farmers. It's just completely mind-boggling and brain-melting. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on the situation. Do with that what you will, but more content is coming, and let me know how you guys feel about the hardcore stuff because, excuse me, that could actually be fun. Like just reacting to some of the. I might actually even try and get like a friend in here, if you guys want to see stuff like that, and we just react to the stuff together, like a friend that knows WoW, because like it is just amusing seeing like people like keyboard turning crazy and not using their abilities and dying to mobs. And like, we're not going to go super hard and make fun of the people, but we'll just explain kind of like what happened and, why people are dying in certain scenarios and stuff like that. So, yeah, let me know if that's something you guys will be interested in. But until then, see you guys next time. And now you know a little bit more about my perspective on bad faith actors. So, I'll see you next time.